and that's fine. I'll just add the things to what Liat said. I expressed my gratitude to all concerned. I repeat it. Liat talked a lot about spatiality, coming from space, and about the connections between the very local, at a neighborhood level, like Shchonat HaTikva, or neighborhoods in Lod. Cities, Tiberias, Tel Aviv, other places, countries, the world. I would like to point at the issue of temporality, because we historians usually think of temporality in terms of what we do. That is, in chronological terms, or in a methodological sense. We define our PhD proposal between the years 1900 and 1930. But it turns out that temporality was inbuilt into the very concept of the mandate, ideologically and conceptually, because the mandate was apparently a temporal rule until people reach their political maturity. When does it come? When it comes. Who defines it? We. The French, the South African, the Belgians, the Japanese. So it is based on the notion of trusteeship and of indefinite, I don't know how to pronounce it even, it's indefinite. And it may be deferred all the time. So I would call it a modality of the mandate, or of mandate thinking, which appears to have some modalities, and this is one. We saw it in many papers. We saw it in Shira's paper, we saw it in Basma's paper, we saw it in your paper on the floods. Damages have to be repaired. How? We don't know. When? We don't know. We saw it in Ken's paper. We must reform the conditions, but we either won't bother or we won't want to irritate people. The other, I think, modality is comparison. And this dawned on me when I was thinking about Esther's chapter. Again, as historians, we either use comparison as a tactic or a methodology, and we have much to say against it. Because you don't compare, as Mark Bloch said, you can compare things that have similarities between them, but are not too dissimilar. And you compare territories that are not so far from one another. So it appears that whether we like it or not, we use comparison. On the other hand, the mandate modality was to compare. I mean, school educators in Syria and the Lebanon, French, compared themselves to the Brits. They compared their mandate to other mandates as well. The British compared themselves incessantly to the Ottomans. No matter how much they borrowed from them, they invented their novelty in many cases. To this is related, or are related, the twins of development or process and hindrances to development, because the idea of the mandates everywhere was to develop, to bring modernity. I'm coming to your paper. Historians and especially influenced by economists, associated development with the post-World War and the Cold War era. But development there was related to an economic conception of a trickle-down economy aided by the World Bank and by different associations that will develop the undeveloped. But we certainly see it from the First World War, where the initiative, as understood by locals, was many times to be industrial or using resources, but under Western eyes, it was agricultural. When you listen to British developers speaking about Mesopotamia/Iraq, they wanted to revert to the Assyrian and Babylonian period. They want Mesopotamia to be the grain resort of the world. Same goes for the Maghreb in French economic and political thinking. So develop sometimes is seen as really going back in time. But progress and development is sometimes, is very stingy. Because one thing to be said about mandate empires, especially the British Empire, especially in Palestine, is that they were trying to run an empire on the cheap. And they outstretched their resources. And this is how empires fall. And, but then this, development is many times checked by agency coming from below. Because the logic of everyday activity from the margins, and I liked Jordi's and Esther's usage of Michel de Certeau about strategy and tactics. This many times is stopped by local initiatives. And I'll stop here, and thank you very much. I learned a lot from each and every one of you, and this was quite an experience. Thanks.